Everyday me, everyday God. Sometimes things are not as they seem, like anger. So how did I get to think about anger this week? Well, this past week I've been more aware of anger than I have been for a while. And I've been struggling to know how to talk about anger. So this last week we were walking down a city street, and it was like we were walking the gauntlet between groups of picketers. On the one side, there were those picketers who were protesting having to wear masks for COVID. There's picketers on the other side saying you must wear masks for COVID. Down the street, where there were picketers saying no more horse-drawn carriages on our street. On the other side was, we want horse-drawn carriages on our street. And it just was hard. Anger in the news, anger around us, anger that's quite frightening. And it just felt overwhelming. And then I surprised myself at anger over some really silly small things. I was driving down the street and I felt totally inconvenienced by a stupid driver who stopped a stupid car in the middle of a stupid street to have a look at our beautiful harbor. 20 seconds worth of inconvenience. And I was angry. I was angry when some hurtful comments were made, even when I know what's underneath. Silly little things. I know better. Then I got angry at God because he hadn't dealt with my anger. He hadn't healed it. He hadn't fixed it. And I got angry that God hadn't made me a completely new creation already today. And then I got angry at myself. I dragged myself off into a corner and yelled at myself. And I yelled, "You stupid one, what are you doing? You know better than this. Give it your anger." That is a very messy place to find myself. Anger frightens me. My own anger frightens me, and anger of people around me frighten me. I thought I had grown up and beyond old patterns of that eruptive anger. Anger's not a new experience for me. Anger was, for a good part of my earlier years, my go-to protection mode. Made me feel a bit stronger than the pain I felt inside. Anger pushed people away so I didn't have to risk and maybe lose much relationally. So God and I have had conversations about anger for a long time. And God's done an awesome job in really giving me insight and changing and healing and releasing me from anger. But it's still there, that messy place. So many years ago, God gave me a parable. Here it is. A parent and a child are walking down the street. The child runs into the street and nearly gets hit by a car. What would we most likely see a parent do? Drag the kid to the sidewalk and start yelling at them, lean over them. We would see angry words, angry tone, angry body language. But what might be happening underneath that surface expression of anger? Underneath, we might find guilt. The parent hadn't been vigilant enough, had been doing something on their iPhone, hadn't been protective enough. Maybe fear that they nearly lost the child to death. Emotions underneath are what are unseen compared to the emotions that we see expressed. And it's the emotions underneath that are really important to kind of go down and have a look at and to be aware of. So the anger on the sidewalk is one of those, not always as it seems, emotional experiences. Now, anger seems to have the potential of taking up a great deal of space within and around us, a bit like a virus. It takes on a life of its own. It very quickly gathers Hurricane 1 class speed inside of us and all around us. And we become stuck in a suck-em dry vortex in this destructive anger. So that vortex, motor running, sitting ready to suck us into that dark, murky hole that actually ends up in a whole bunch of destructive lies while spewing its destructive energy all around us, often targeting those we love most. It only took about 20 seconds of my impatience to trigger anger in me. Less than a minute out of 1,440 minutes I have in a day to kick that suck-em dry vortex into anger mode. To be sucked into that murky darkness where an old familiar voice cackles at me. At the bottom of that vortex, this is what I hear. I told you you'd always be an angry woman. I told you you'd be back down here. You're just a bag of poop, honey. I know who you are. You're unlovable, unlikable. You're not nice at all. Thank God I recognize that mocking voice now, not of God, but a voice of destruction. And I begin to hear that still small voice of God calling to me. Look up, Elaine. Look up. I'm up here. Come on up out there. Come on up. I'll help you. Dealing with that mocking voice deep within, that's another day's reflection. But for today, let's go back to anger. So I've discovered that anger is not bad. It's not wrong. It's not evil. Anger is a healthy human emotion. God gets angry. We read about God's anger quite a bit in the Bible. Well, what does God get angry at? Is he inviting us to get angry at the same things in wise ways? Go check it out in the Bible. See where God gets angry and what he gets angry at. Emotions are a kind of thermometer. They simply indicate something's happening. If we can work with those emotions, then we will have a clearer understanding of what's happening, discernment and wisdom perhaps. For example, if I suddenly feel this anger rising, it's my thermometer saying, Elaine, there is a lot of angry heat in this thing. Beware. Deal with it. Or the thermometer might indicate that the temperature's dropped and there's this cold, icy fear present. My thermometer might say, Elaine, tread carefully. Or the thermometers might indicate normal temperature. Enjoy. It's interesting that in Ephesians chapter 4, verses 15 to 27, there's a paragraph where Paul talks about anger. From the Message, listen to what Paul says. Paul says, go ahead and be angry. You do well to be angry, but don't use your anger as fuel for revenge. Don't stay angry. Don't go to bed angry. Don't give the devil that kind of foothold in your life. So the emotion of anger is not wrong, but certain attitude and behavioral responses and reactions to my anger could give the devil a foothold in my life. So I need to be aware. We need to be aware to read our thermometer accurately with discernment, with wise choices. Perhaps our anger could teach us, give us new eyes to see those unseen places in our own selves and give us discernment and growth in understanding of our own selves and maybe into those around us. If we took the time to think about what might be underneath, to listen, to be more careful. Jesus, you see us. You hear us. You know us. You're not afraid of our anger. And you're inviting us to walk through anger with you, to understand and to discern. So help us to honor you as we work through our anger. Amen.